Our March 11th, 2026 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. Paper copies of the agenda are available for those of you who are here in person on the table back by those doors. I think Robin might have made you a pot of coffee too, in case you want any. And the full packet with all available materials is available on our website. Reviewing our full agenda, first we will consider our consent agenda. There are 9 items on that this evening, after which we will have general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues that are not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we do apply certain rules regarding public comments. We will do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we will accept public comment of any length in writing. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission, and we reserve the right to mute and remove any speaker whose comments are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent. Campaigning for public office during the public comment period is not allowed. Please give your full name and residence for our meeting minutes if you are comfortable doing so, and please address your comments directly to the Commission. We will hear from people in person first, then we will look to our Zoom meeting attendees. Please use the raise your hand function online if you do wish to provide your public comment virtually. Please also know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we will try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment concludes, we'll move on to our regular business agenda for tonight. There are 3 items on our regular agenda this evening. For each action item, we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, and then we will open the floor for public comment that is relevant to each of those items. Once public comment is concluded, we'll bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote on action items. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. And with that, we'll jump right into our consent agenda. And I'll also make a note that Commissioner Kelly is here with us remotely on Zoom. Welcome. Commissioners, does anybody have anything they wish to pull for further questions or discussion off the consent agenda? Okay. Seeing none, is there anybody in the public who wishes to pull anything off the consent agenda for further questions or for questions? Or comments? Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and bring that back to the Commission and accept a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda items 1.1 through 1.9.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thank you all. And with that, we will go into general public comment. This is an opportunity for anybody who's here that wants to make general public comment about items that are not on today's agenda. Please feel free to come forward if you wish.
John M. 66049. On February 17th, I was at the city brief on A Place for Everyone, where it was asked by commissioners and answered, how is the APFE going to attain functional zero by 2028? In terms of accountability, this is a key performance indicator that even if it is aspirational, it's going to be difficult to get to 2028. We were told APFE is focused on chronic homelessness for functional zero. Functional zero is rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. However, we are also told that we do not have enough supportive housing and we do not have sustained funding. After 5 years at $500,000 a year, these are 2 known and have been known factors blocking the attainment of the goal. We are not there yet, and doubt was expressed that we can get there. City commissioners heard the answer. Perhaps we need additional key performance indicators, KPIs, since the primary KPI is not obtainable. The process needs more transparency. Other than population counting and housing placement, chronic population treatment delivery is not visible to the public. or commissioners. Treatments for addicted or abused, etc., should be regularly reported just like hospitals report treatments delivered and results obtained to the federal government, e.g. Medicare, etc. An incomplete picture of the primary groups experiencing homelessness in Douglas County is a barrier to implementing effective interventions and measuring success. To justify public spending, we need to change how we deliver, measure, and report supportive or medical treatments to the people that require it. Currently, partners do not integrate and report on treatment protocols and outcomes. A consistent and measurable way for providers to deliver counseling and medical treatment is needed. Consistent treatment delivery for groups suffering from similar challenges is required. All providers must communicate and collaborate to diagnose and treat similar groups receiving assistance. Population, not individual, treatment data should be released to the public and commissioners in a standard way: intake, treatment delivery, outcome, as well as successes and failures of these programs. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Is there anybody else here who wishes to provide general public comment? Anybody virtually online, Sarah? Okay.
Sherilyn Wells, you're in the panel and you can provide public comment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was also going to talk about supportive housing. My understanding, I may be wrong, that most of the people that are chronically homeless have some kind of serious mental health problems, such as schizophrenia, serious bipolar depression. According to Bert Nash's website, they were going to build something over there on 6th Street. They had gotten $2 million from Douglas County, $1 million from the city of Lawrence, $200,000 from the state of Kansas to build this. And then additionally, the Affordable Housing Advisory Board said, evidently they had given them two different amounts, $450,000 plus another $100,000. So that comes up to $3,750,000 they were given. Now, I would understand that, and certainly, you know, it was a good idea. It sounded the way they were doing it a little expensive. But I just wonder where, you know, they spent the money on the property and then planning, where the rest of the money is. And if an entity, a nonprofit, is given money for a certain purpose, do they tax money for a certain purpose? Do they have to use it for that purpose, or do they have to give it back, or can they switch it around to other purposes? I mean, I think this is kind of a legal question, and if you had an answer, I'd like to know. Additionally, I never particularly thought that mental health reform was well planned out, because shortly after it happened, people with serious mental illness died here homeless. I've said that before, but I don't think it was well planned out. I'm not sure exactly what happened between point A and to where we've gotten now. It's not clear to me, but clearly there is a problem. And I agree with the other fellow. Of course, just handing out data doesn't change things, but it would be, I would like to know how well things are going. And if you all send my email to one of your county representatives, and if you understand the legality of the money and where it should be, whether they have to give it back or what, I'd like to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sherilyn. Anybody else, Sarah? Okay, go ahead and close general public comment, and we will move on to our regular business agenda, starting with item 3.1. And am I turning that over to Sarah and legal counsel first? Oh, I'm turning it over to, to our planning staff first. I'll let you introduce yourself and the item. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. My name is Becky Pepper. I'm the planning manager at the Douglas County City of Lawrence Planning Office. So this item before you tonight is to consider a request for extension of the approval date on the conditional use permit that was approved for a commercial utility scale solar energy conservation system use. The first thing I want to point out before we get too far along, though, is a correction in the item report. I incorrectly stated that that item was approved on April 13th, 2024. That is the date that you all first heard this item. But then the resolution was brought back and adopted, as well as the findings of fact approved on May 22nd, 2024. So that is the official approval date. So our county zoning regulations stipulate when conditional use permits expire. And it says that if the use isn't implemented or improvements put into place or building permit obtained within 2 years of that approval, then the conditional use permit expires or becomes null and void. However, the applicant may request an extension request for up to 1 year from the Board of County Commissioners. So under this provision, the conditional use permit will expire on May 22nd, 2026. If the improvements or uses are not implemented or a building permit is not obtained. We did receive a timely extension request that was submitted on December 23rd of 2025. And so staff does recommend approval of the approval extension request, setting that new expiration date at May 22nd, 2027. So that's really all I have for you. Open to any questions, and we also have staff who can help.
Thank you. Commissioners, questions for staff at this time?
Depends on which staff we're talking about.
Any staff? Go ahead if you have a question.
I had a question for our legal counsel on this matter. Is it your opinion that the judge's order prevents the applicant from submitting a building permit currently?
It is not, the judge's order doesn't prohibit the building permit. What prohibits the building permit is the completion of all of the conditions. But the judge's order permits any substantial change to the property. So they can't, do anything significant with that property during this time. We're waiting on we have one more condition here tonight that's coming to the board, and then there's the road use maintenance agreement that's yet to come to the board. And then there's other conditions that the applicant has to complete. And I do believe some of those conditions require the applicant to access the property and enter the property and do certain things on the property, which the judge's order is prohibiting them from doing at this time. So kind of in a roundabout way, that's how that interfaces.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So to that extent, what is the judge's order prohibiting at this time?
It's prohibiting the applicant from entering the property and making any, I forget the language he used exactly, but any permanent changes to the property. You recall we had a discussion about the temporary business use permit, and then the judge allowed that activity after some scrutiny to go forth, but it's very limited.
I just heard Becky say that clarifying words around for up to 1 year. So could the commission ask for a 6-month extension of time with conditions leading up to the November litigation court date?
The code language does not actually say up to. So I would refer back to the language itself. And we're looking at 12-307-2.10, section B. And it reads, applicants may request the Board of County Commissioners to approve a 1-year extension if the request is submitted to the planning office prior to the expiration date. So as this reads, it does not contemplate an extension of time other than the 1-year extension.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Commissioners, any other questions for staff? And I should note, I should have started here, maybe. Thank you, Becky, for the presentation and brief explanation. This is a planning item, so commissioners do need to disclose any ex parte communications they may have had regarding this item. And I'll start and say that I had a handful of phone calls and conversations with neighbors and Grant Township members about this item. And that's the extent of my ex parte communications. Do other commissioners have anything to disclose?
I don't have anything other than the emails that folks received, that all of us received in the packet.
Correct. Multiple emails that were received.
I think I had 5 emails.
Got it. Those are the public packet. Okay, thank you, commissioners. And then also, since this is a planning item, we always offer the opportunity for the applicant if they have anything additional to add to the staff report. Okay, thank you. All right. With that, commissioners, if there's no other questions for staff, at this time, we'll go ahead and open this item up for public comment. And I do believe staff put up a sign-up sheet up there. So if anybody's making public comment on this item, just for our meeting minutes, it'd be helpful if after you make your comment, you could include your name and zip code or address, whatever you're comfortable sharing with us. So with that, is there anybody here who would like to make public comment on item 3.1? This is a time for public comment about this item that we just received a staff report about, which is for the extension, a 1-year extension request for the conditional use permit. So now we're opening up public comment. If you'd like to provide that, you'll have 3 minutes of time. You can speak first, and then after you're done speaking, you can just put your name and information on the sign-up sheet if you don't mind. Oh, okay, then great. Don't worry about it.
Okay.
And it looks like the microphone is already unmuted for you, so just make sure you talk right into it, please.
Okay, can you hear me? All right. The issue at hand here is much greater than yay or nay, solar or farmland. Instead, it relates in a small but direct way to world events, the Ukraine-Russian war, plus oil exploration and exploitation in Nigeria. Savion is owned by the Netherlands oil company Royal Dutch Shell, known as Shell Oil, with income from buying, refining, and selling oil and gas. It is one of the largest in the world. And for years, Shell has existed lockstep with the Russian state-owned oil and gas company Gazprom, back to the days Russia's petroleum industry was taken from private oligarch hands and incorporated into the state. Shell was brought in to help the government nationalize that industry and was given part of the action, as well as buying and selling Russian oil and gas. Shell has involvement in exploration and extraction from Siberian oil and gas fields. Shell purchased Savion and its existing 160 solar projects around the country on December 14th, 2021. Given Shell's plans on selling a quarter of those, it stands to pocket some $5 billion. In March 2022, when a Grant Township solar farm was being discussed by the Planning Commission, Shell purchased 100,000 metric tons of oil from Russia, that's a tanker load, in violation of sanctions imposed against Russia because of its war on Ukraine. Shell was accused of prolonging the Ukraine war with a sanctions loophole and putting cash in Putin's pockets and helping to fund Russia's brutal aggression against the people of Ukraine, according to an advisor to the Ukrainian president. The purchase was noted and exposed by the BBC, which has been following Shell's activities in Russia and Africa. On March 8th, 2022, Shell stated it was sorry and pledged to stop buying Russian oil and gas. On July 2nd, 2023, a year later, the BBC reported Shell still trading Russian gas despite more than a year after pledging to withdraw from the Russian energy market. Shell was also at the center of protests and revolts by coastal villagers villagers in Nigeria, dependent upon farming and fishing, where its shell's sloppy practices resulted in degradation of both lands and waters in the areas where it was working. Paramilitaries raided, killed, burned, and razed villages. 10 village leaders were arrested, tried, and hung, although they were recently whatever the word is, posthumously exonerated, though they're still dead. Why is all this important?
That's your time.
Accountability, huh?
Your time is up. The 3 minutes are over.
Okay.
You're welcome to provide more public comment in writing to commissioners. And also, some of us know who you are, but will you state your name for the record, please, in the meeting minutes?
I'm John Narramore. I live at 2043 East 1250.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it. Is there anybody else here who would like to provide public comment on this particular agenda item? Go ahead. And a quick reminder, in case anybody's listening online, please use the raise your hand function so staff knows that you would like to provide public comment.
Natalia Lowther, 1480 North 1700 Road. My farm is along Maple Grove tributary, and it's the first low spot north of where the drainage ditch flows into the river. My farm is not the default detention pond for any development north of Lawrence. And I just want to say that every time something like this comes up where there's a hope to put development in the floodplain that will affect the flooding on my farm. I have a quick question, which is, are additional extensions allowed at the end of, if this were approved, would we be back here again next year for an additional extension if the applicant wanted? Can you answer that?
Natalia, you can, a commissioner might ask that later, but we just want you to
Okay.
go on with your public comment. Question noted. Thank you.
In 2024, I spent a lot of my farming preparation year fighting this CUP, and I lost an entire week's income because the public hearing was held on farmers market opening day. I need to farm instead of being here fighting to protect my farm. I think there's several things that are constraining this project with the lawsuit and then the current economic situation with tariffs affecting the economics of it. With recent world events, we need to let farmers plan for the future. By giving these farmers on this land a final answer now, instead of making them wait at least a year, maybe more years, to know whether or not they're going to be able to keep farming this land so that they can make long-range plans to deal with the upheaval in fertilizer prices, fuel prices, parts, et cetera. Thank you. Please deny it.
Thank you, Natalia. Is there anybody else here in person who would like to provide public comment on this item? Okay. Anybody raise their hand virtually, Sarah? Okay, thank you. Go ahead and close public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission for any further questions or comments. And I will raise the question asked in public comment and ask staff or legal to clarify about the allowance of additional extensions beyond the 1 year that we're discussing tonight.
The code does not provide for an additional extension beyond the one that we're talking about here tonight. There may be other ways to go if we get to that point, options that you might have, but as we sit here tonight, I don't know what those are.
Thank you. Just so to clarify and put a point on it, the code does not specify anything beyond this 1-year extension that we discussed was specifically stated as a 1-year extension, not up to 1 year.
That's correct.
Correct? Thank you.
Madam Chair, we usually allow the applicant to respond to public comment.
Thank you for that point of order. I appreciate that. Does the applicant wish to respond? Okay, I'm seeing negative head nods, so thank you for catching that for the record. Commissioners, any other questions you'd like to ask?
Outside of the conditional use permit and leading up to litigation in November, what are the outstanding items that the applicant needs to finalize?
So we have the condition with the road maintenance agreement is one item of approval, and then the funding agreement is the other item. There's various items within the conditions that are more related to the building permit specifically. So that again is somewhat impacted by what they've been allowed to do with the temporary business use. So again, I could probably go through each and every one of them, but that's detailed out in the resolution with the conditional use permit.
So there's three outstanding is what I'm hearing: the funding agreement, the road use, and then the building permit.
Ultimately, the building permit, yes.
Okay, all right. And then for the road use agreement, who needs to come together to finalize the road use agreement?
So the road use agreement is an agreement between the applicant or the developer, the township, Grant Township, and then the Board of County Commissioners. So 3 parties to this agreement.
And is that something that is currently in process?
Yes, yeah.
Is that something that all parties feel like will come to fruition between now and the court date in November?
I can't speak to all parties concerned. So I know that there's been active discussions or attempts at discussions about the road use maintenance agreement, but again, nothing has come to fruition as far as that's concerned at this point.
Is the judge good with all parties working through that agreement at this time?
There's nothing in the court order that would prohibit such discussions.
Okay.
Could I ask the applicant a question? Or is it too late for that?
No, it's perfectly you're right. We're just ask that the applicant come up to answer the question.
Yeah, I'm not sure which of the applicants will come up, but I'm just wondering what exactly has prevented you from submitting a building permit?
Commissioner, this is Matt Goff with Barber Emerson Law Firm on behalf of the applicant. Could you restate your question?
Yeah. What has prevented the applicant from submitting the building permit at this point?
I think the answers you got from staff is fair and accurate.
Well, I thought our attorney said you had to do certain things before you could submit the building permit. So I was trying to figure out what that was.
Sure.
That's
so you were told
prohibited
the
by the
funding
court
agreement
order.
was one and the RUMA was another. And then there are various comments in the conditions that when we submit the final version of the CUP, the image of the future conditions site plan, there's some little changes that were asked for in the conditions and little technical things like that. I think, Sean, that's probably what you were referring to. So I think those are all right in front of us. We know what they are. Does that answer your question?
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'm not sure what your question really is.
Have you been working through the project plan with the county and/or the planning department?
Yes.
Okay. How far are you along in that actual process?
Well, I think most of that process is complete. Like, I think we're just rounding out the final parts of it.
Okay. So the only thing that's preventing you is the fact that you cannot acquire the actual building permit at this time?
Yeah, I think that's probably a question you should ask staff on the technicalities of when they could release it, because it's all in their court. But there's the submittal of something that they can put their stamp on for the CUP, and then whatever else comes with the building permits, they probably need to see other things too. And maybe that's more of an engineering question for me that, I don't know if I can give you the specifics on that.
So from your perspective at this time, you feel like your process for the plans are complete and you're just waiting for a rubber stamp?
I think given as things stand and the fact that there's the lawsuit pending, which has by and large prevented a lot of the things from rounding third and coming to home, we're doing great.
So it sounds like from your perspective, the applicant's plans are complete. Is that what I'm
I
hearing?
don't know if I can say that. I'm just their lawyer. I don't know how far along they are.
Okay, so is the applicant here to actually answer the questions then?
There are other people here, yes.
Okay, so can we bring the applicant up here to answer the
Certainly.
questions?
Thank you.
Damon Ray, project manager with Evergy.
You with Evergy or you with Free State Solar or Savion?
I'm with Evergy, who would be the eventual owner operator of the project. And we are the ones constructing the project.
Okay. Okay. All right. Because at this time, you're not listed on any of our documents.
At this time, the project is owned by Savion, but we have an agreement with Savion to purchase the project and then build and operate the project.
Yes, but at this time, you're not listed on any of our documents.
I believe that is probably
Correct.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes. And in the ARR, it states that Savion and Free State Solar are the shell company.
Hi, Brianna Baca with Savion. I'm the Director of Development for this project. And we do have an agreement with Evergy to own and operate the project. And we've been very open with that. And it's pending regulatory approval. And they are listed as part of the application pending regulatory approval. They will be the owner operator. And so they will be the ones likely submitting that building permit. So that's why Evergy and Damon were up here and will be up here answering those types of questions.
Okay, so back to Commissioner Dorsey's question. Are the plans complete?
So that's
And
the
who would
question.
actually be answering that question?
Yeah, so that's why Damon came up here, because he will be answering that.
And so you being Savion being the shell company listed on all the documents, you won't be answering that question?
I can answer it, but Damon has better information. So I'm going to hand it to him because they are the ones that are going to be submitting the building permit once we get to that point.
Even though they're not listed on any of the documents.
Commissioner, if I may add, I think you're correct that Evergy is not explicitly called out in the document we have before us, but if going back to historical documents, it is clear in the agreements and part of the conditions that Evergy is a party to the agreements, but there are certain things that are happening in a certain sequence. And so all our historical presentations and discussions with applicants have included representatives from Savion and Evergy, Free State Solar LLC being the project name, the project holder that involves entities from both of those, both Evergy and Savion. So you're correct that the document we have before us is not mentioning that specifically, but Evergy has been a party to the whole application process and the permitting, and they've been co-presenting or answering questions about this project throughout the course of it.
And I think that might be my biggest concern is because Evergy is not showing up on any of our documents. And to include the next one that we have on the agenda, and yet they have been actively engaged, yet I'm not seeing them showing up on any of the documents. And so when I went and did my own research, going all the way back to 2024, as of April 18th, 2024, HB 2527, the legislature usurped this particular governing body and signed into CWIP, which basically means that The ratepayers will actually be paying for the infrastructure costs for all of this. So when I think about Douglas County residents and even Northeast Kansas taxpayers, they will be paying for all of these infrastructure costs. So when I think about Douglas County residents, including seniors, veterans, disabled, and low-income households, they're being asked to pay for a multi-million-dollar project benefiting billion-dollar data centers via a shell entity with no assets, while Evergy collects guaranteed returns and shareholder profit. Our role here is to ensure transparency, oversight, and protection for our residents, not to rubber stamp a prearranged deal. So this is where I have serious concern about the CUP.
Commissioner, I want to clarify if you, Commissioner Anderson or Commissioner Dorsey, have specific questions that you feel like have not been answered yet by the applicants who came up to answer specific questions. You just made comments, so I just want to draw it back and make sure that there's not unanswered questions.
There are unanswered questions because there still have not been answered. And so we're going back and forth as to who is actually on the documents and if the plans are actually complete. And we're still not getting answers.
So the question before the applicant, if I can repeat it back so I understand, is where are we at with the building permit and what is preventing us from submitting that? I'm going to let Damon Ray from Evergy answer that. The plans are in progress and he has more details to exactly where they are.
Yeah, happy to answer that portion of the question. So the plans, we recently submitted the temporary business use so that we can do additional geotech and testing work on the site. That is in progress and that is necessary to complete the rest of the engineering design. As far as the overall site plan goes, that has been completed, but there are engineering packages, civil, electrical, et cetera, that must be submitted as part of the building permit process. And so we need to do that testing in order to complete those packages and in order to submit for a building permit. So those are in progress. The anticipation is that by the time the litigation in November occurs, that we would be prepared to submit for the building permit at that time.
And I still go back. You're not listed on any of our documents. You're not listed on this particular documents. It is Savion and Free State Solar. And even on our next agenda item, you are not a signing entity.
Commissioner Dorsey, did you have further questions?
I was just wondering if I believe there was a few months delay in getting permission to do some of your on-site testing. As I recall, the court delayed that once, I believe. Is that the issue with completing the building permit?
That did delay completing the building permit, correct, because it delayed those studies from happening.
Are those studies done yet, or are they still in process?
They just finished or are finishing up the field work now, and then they get into the laboratory. And so they aren't quite done yet from us getting all that information to then go into that engineering design.
So you don't think 2 months from now, you'll still be working on it?
Correct. We would still be working on it 2 months from now.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Kelly, I want to check in with you online. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask?
No, but thanks for checking.
Okay. How about you, Commissioner Rowley?
Just a question for Terrell. Do you want to address who's on the documents in that process?
Brianna, will you come back up? Can you speak to the setup of Free State Solar LLC?
Yeah, I can. Free State LLC is a Savion entity, and through Free State Solar LLC, we have a purchase sale agreement in place with Evergy for them to purchase the project from Savion. So it'll stay Free State LLC, and all of the CUP, the leases, all of the studies, everything in your packet, it's all assigned or done by Free State LLC. And so they are purchasing everything, including that CUP, the leases, all of the engineering work, et cetera.
I have a question. Who actually does the construction?
If the purchase sale agreement goes forward, because it is pending regulatory approval, then Evergy would be coordinating that work. So they would probably have a third-party contractor do that work. And if we own the project, we would have a third-party contractor construct the project. And that construction company is listed in that building permit.
Thanks.
Or would be.
Answer your question, Commissioner Willie? Okay.
Other questions, commissioners? Comments or motions? Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move forward with a motion.
Well, I had
I'm sorry, I didn't. Go ahead.
I was looking at Patrick.
Thank
to
you. Thank
see what
you.
he was doing.
Go
I
ahead,
was
Commissioner
ready to
Dorsey.
make a motion, so yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, my thinking on this is from a technical viewpoint, whether it's a giant solar field or a dog kennel that's going in, the process would be the same. I know there's a legal case working its way through the court, and I believe part of that issue was that procedures were not totally followed. And so I don't want to be guilty of not following a procedure. So the procedure says if there's a holdup for some reason, we can grant another 1-year extension to the process. And so I don't see how I can turn this down because a court order has stymied some of the development. So things couldn't be completed within the 2-year time frame.
And personally, I was not party to a commission that actually moved this forward. So I don't see that my vote is needed.
Any final comments, commissioners? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move to approve a 1-year extension of conditional use permit CUP-23-00312 pursuant to section 12-307-2.10 of the Douglas County zoning regulations, establishing a new expiration date of May 22nd, 2027.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, passes 4-1. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. With that, we will move on to our next planning item and invite Becky back up here to introduce that for us.
Becky, you're muted.
Thank you again. This item is again related to the CUP for the commercial utility scale solar energy conservation system use. With that approval, it was approved with conditions, some of those being items that needed to come back for consideration by the county commission. Some of those items have already come before you tonight is related to a funding agreement. And what that funding agreement really does is it provides the mechanism to recover actual costs associated with third-party inspections for the various other applicable conditions that are included with that CUP. So we do have staff here that can provide, if you have questions specific to the details within that funding agreement, they are much more knowledgeable and can help you with that. But that's my brief presentation and happy to help with any other questions.
Thank you kindly. Anything else from other staff? Sean, Sarah?
I can just add a little bit to the funding agreement. Again, this was a condition of approval. But ultimately, as Becky mentioned, it establishes a mechanism for the county to recoup third-party costs associated with most of the conditions that were put onto the CUP. Just by way of example, bond review, vegetation release, agrivoltaic plan compliance. So those are the things that are being contemplated as far as third-party inspections and reimbursement of those costs.
John, I forget, I read it, but who is this agreement with?
It's the agreement is with Free State Solar LLC.
Okay, and if I recall, that entity is going to be sold to Evergy at some point in time. So ultimately, no matter whether Savion owns it or Evergy owns it, you're both owning the same LLC, correct?
We have the applicant answer that question. Are you ready for the applicant to present?
Well, I think they already answered it.
Why don't you come up so we can have it on the record? And just in case there are other questions.
Correct. Anyone who owns the LLC would then also fund this agreement.
Yeah, no, I just want to make sure we weren't agreeing with one party and then another party owns it and they have no connection to the agreement.
Correct. And that's why the LLC stays in place.
When Evergy transfers ownership, or when you transfer ownership to Evergy, is there some sort of dollars that also transfer ownership to Savion and or Free State Solar in that transfer?
That's confidential information. I'm sorry, I can't answer that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff or the applicant? No.
I got another question for staff. Can you, I think you have a rough estimate on the value of this building permit. Is that correct?
I don't know if we have a rough estimate necessarily. Again, part of the costs associated with the project is still yet to be determined with the building permit, but I can certainly turn to Terrell if.
Yes, we do have a rough estimate of the building permit fee, which is at the beginning of your funding agreement, approximately $270,000.
And that's subject to change based on the building permit and the actual value of the property
That's correct.
or of the project. It could go up a little, could go down a little,
That's correct.
or could go up a lot, I guess. Thanks.
And the formula for that is included in the funding agreement. So it's not a shot in the dark. It's exactly spelled out in the funding agreement. It's just waiting on the total cost of the project that would come with the building permit.
That's correct.
Any other questions, commissioners? Okay.
No, I would just, one comment.
Do you want me to do public comment first?
No, this is a general comment. Erica and I may have had more questions than you guys because you were involved in the original approval and we weren't.
That tracks. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and open this item for public comment. If there's anybody here in the building that would like to provide public comment on this specific item, feel free to come forward now. Okay, seeing no takers, any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, thank you. With that, we will close public comment on this item and bring it back for any additional discussion, comments, or other burning questions that might have popped up in the last 30 seconds.
Oh, I have comments.
Okay.
So once again, I go back to 2024 and the fact that HB 2527 provides the opportunity for all the costs of this funding agreement to be charged back to the ratepayer. So even though Douglas County is able to receive a funding agreement for this, ratepayers in Douglas County will bear the cost for all of this. and to include the pilot. And so those dollars are not going to go back to our own constituents. They're not going to go back to Douglas County. And we will once again bear the cost for, as Free State Solar, Savion said, that is confidential for what they're actually going to make on this. Evergy will continue to make money on this and continue to put those dollars back to their shareholders. And our Douglas County citizens, our older adults, our veterans, our disabled, our constituents as a whole will continue to bear the burden for this particular CUP, for this funding agreement. And knowing that in July of 2025, the KCC approved another rate change, and then knowing after tonight's meeting on March 24th, there will be another rate change. And so I encourage everyone to put their comments in and to ask for not another rate change. We know that many of us have shown up and asked for these rate changes not to happen, but they continue to happen. And even though the KCC also asked Evergy not to move forward as quickly in regards to these rate changes, they are still moving forward quickly. We have the McNew plant coming online. We have the Viola plant coming online. We have multiple data centers coming online, and they are affecting our utility bills. They are affecting all of our constituents across Douglas County, but also across Northeast Kansas. And our constituents cannot continue to bear the burden of these costs.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments, commissioners? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and move forward. This is a condition that we.
I just have one more thing to say. I also do not think that this funding agreement should have preceded the prior agenda item.
Okay. Thank you for your comments, Commissioner. This is something we have been anticipating and expecting, and it's one more condition met by the applicant on the pathway to potential release of a building permit, issuance of a building permit, and release of this conditional use permit. I'm satisfied with staff's work on this, and I think it is appropriate to move forward with it as is. So with that, I move to approve the funding agreement associated with conditional use permit CUP-23-00312 for Kansas Sky Energy Center, a commercial utility scale solar energy conversion system use.
Second.
First, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Thank you. That passes 4-1. All right. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you to applicants for being here, and to staff for their work on this, and to the public for their comments. With that, we will move on to our final regular business agenda item for the evening, which is a mid-session update from Little Government Relations. So anybody who would like to hear what's going on in our state house lately, please feel free to stay with us. Welcome, Stuart. Stuart, make sure you unmute that mic.
Thank you.
Stuart, do you need help pulling up your PowerPoint?
I have no idea how to get it.
Okay.
I know my limitations. I appreciate you referring to this as a mid-session report. The nice thing is we're only 3 weeks away from being done. So that is helpful and constructive. Stuart Little with Little Government Relations in Topeka. I'm going to talk a little bit about where we are as we kind of get toward the end of the legislative session. They will be done 2 weeks from Friday, and they may come back in early April to do a wrap-up session. But I think the general sense that we're getting from folks is they want to try to get everything done and then just be gone by the 27th. and then go back, campaign. Everybody in the House is up for election. You have 3 different members of the legislature running for statewide office. So a lot going there and a lot of reasons for folks to get out. And as we watch more things coming up that I'll talk about, it's probably good that we're on a track to get out. Property tax issues have not been resolved. Budget issue has not been resolved, although they started working on the budget today slowly. There are a number of, I'll talk briefly first here about taxes, where we are on taxes. There are 2 main, obviously came into this session when I showed up before the session. I said, this is all about reducing property taxes. Have yet to pull that off yet. The 2 issues that we have to deal with are the constitutional amendment, which would put a cap of 3% on assessed valuation growth. That passed the Senate 30-10, and it's in the House out of committee. I believe it may even be up tomorrow, maybe Friday, that they're going to debate that. And of course, if that passes it has the 2/3 majority in the Senate. If it passes with that in the House, that it bypasses the governor and we move on to that process. So that would be, I think that's unlikely that we'll get that when it comes up. That takes 84 votes, but we'll see. I think the more likely option is some variation of what we have here, which is essentially a cap on the amount that any local unit of government can increase their budget. Started out, the House sent this bill 2745 over to the Senate, and it exempted schools. It includes cities and counties, other jurisdictions, the 3% cap and with the growth. And if you wanted to exceed 3%, you could do that, but then that was subject to at the time, it was a 3% protest petition of the electors. I think it was tied to the Secretary of State's race. So very small percentage of people could protest and stop the vote that you all would take in terms of your budget. It went over to the Senate, and the Senate did their work on it. It did pass the House, not with a super majority or anything, so that a veto would not be able to be overwritten. So when it gets to the Senate, they add schools back in. I think part of the strategy early on was if we take the schools out of the mix, that's 1/3 of the people that will oppose this. And the Senate decided not to wait until next year when they would have done it probably. So schools are back in. They changed the 3% growth cap to a Midwest CPI rate, which I think historically is lower than the 3% level. And then they also changed the protest petition to 10, this is going to get confusing because you should have watched them go through it in committee, but a 10% registered voters in each taxing jurisdiction in that year would be the threshold required to have a protest petition against this. So part of what this process also did, the House bill eliminated the revenue neutral rate. So you just go through your budget, you wouldn't have to go through all those processes. This and the Senate reinstitutes that rate. It requires that revenue neutral rate notification to go out again, as it did before. But in an interesting twist, your revenue neutral rate that will go out can also be signed and returned as your protest petition against any of the taxing jurisdictions that are there. So it'll streamline that process, I guess, as well. The one thing that the House also excluded bond issues and bond payments from the growth in the annual rate. It was a bigger deal for schools sometimes, but the Senate has added that back in. So that came out of committee day before yesterday. It may run on I haven't seen the agenda yet for tomorrow. It may run on the Senate floor tomorrow, maybe Friday. They only have like 2 more days they can do work into next week, and then we're going to kind of go into a period of negotiating. So if that passes, that'll go to tax conference committee, and they will begin debating it. Whether this passes or not, the tax conference committee will meet on a property tax issue, a resolution, and this will kind of be the base of it. So the other issue I would note in terms of taxes, sales tax. There's legislation that will end the process where counties had to go to the state legislature and get approval to raise sales tax, both the 1% general and then the 2% special. So you would be able to go and do that as you all voted to do and not have to get legislative approval. They got tired of signing off on all of these different county issues. That passed the House. It gets a hearing this Friday, and I think that will be one of the things that should be able to get wrapped up fairly easily. I said famous last words. Elections, talk briefly about a couple of elections bills. There are two that I want to emphasize that have an impact on local governments. Number one is a House bill that passed the House that moves local elections, all local elections to even years. So if you're doing an even year already, it doesn't matter, but for school districts and for cities, everyone would be at the same time. So your ballots would be very long and those kind of things. It was killed. And then yesterday afternoon in the House Elections Committee, they added it back into a Senate bill and sent it out, and it'll likely see action. The other bill of additional significance is a bill that prohibits the use of any public resources that you would possess to do informational work on any ballot question. So if you had a bond issue or you had any of those, anything in there, you could provide information in a neutral way. I believe that's the way the bill describes it. You couldn't do any mailers for education projects. You couldn't put something on the website that talked about what you would build if you had these resources. It's designed to eliminate the capacity to go beyond saying we're asking for this to be approved and it would produce these items. You won't be able to do any explaining. Your employees would be subject to a Class C misdemeanor and I think a $5,000 civil penalty for every time that happened going forward. It passed the House unbelievably. I'm not sure it was dug into very deeply, but with 88 votes. So it's going to be part of what we talk about in the next couple of days. There also are two other bills that are making their way around. One abolishes mail ballots and the other repeals advance voting. So and both of those have passed the House of Representatives already. So there will be Education Conference Committee going on that will be grappling with all of this stuff. Housing, I briefly want to talk on housing issues on the behalf of the county and with the Kansas Housing Action Network and United Community Services in Johnson County. We have been participating and trying to pursue a variety of housing legislations. There was a broad agenda and we've kind of come down to a few of these issues that are left and still maybe have some chance of getting done. And a couple, I'll just hit the highlights of these. I think they're all described in our written report, but moving the Landlord Tenant Act to have a process to go through the Consumer Protection Act. If you have an uninhabitable apartment and you can't find your landlord or their international or their venture capital, a process that would put in place to put that under going down that path rather than you're individually having to chase down folks around. There's also a bill that initially sealed eviction records so that you wouldn't be discriminated against going down the road in the future. What they ended up doing was the bill that passed the House and it has a hearing in the Senate on Friday would, after 3 years, expunge the eviction records so that you could go on and not have that as you were looking for rentals. A couple of other issues, the one other issue, Community Land Trust, has to do with projects like Habitat for Humanity, which in other counties where there are community land trusts and habitat projects, appraisers raised issues of separating the value of the land from the value of the house, which is part of what you do in a habitat home, because when you resell that, you're not selling the land, you're selling the home. So there's some clarification that would go into the appraisers' guidance about how to do that, separate those two things for valuation and for resale value. And those kind of things, it passed the House without any problem. It's got a hearing in Senate Tax Committee on Friday, so that should move forward. Last thing I would mention, when you do a lot of housing bills, you get the housing landlord folks out, and there were two bills that were passed, the Senate and one in the House, that prohibit cities and counties from limiting the ability of landlords to do rentals from folks that have other sources of income that sometimes are dealt with in that way. So, but I don't know that any of this is going to move on that side. I think a couple of these little housing bills might, though. They don't seem to be generating much opposition, a lot of work done. World Cup, just briefly highlight a couple of things related to that. There's a bill that reduces the number for the transient guest tax, the amount of time that size of property that would generate from 2 to 1 bedrooms. There's an error that says 3, we should explain it in here. But so that's going through. And then there's another bill as part of this that extends the time period for a short-term rental to be available, since there will be people coming for a longer time during the World Cup. And so that from May 15th to July 25th, there could be a rental of a short-term rental beyond that, without regard to what your local requirements might be. I would note one other issue. The governor issued an emergency declaration order, which the legislature rejected, and came up with their own order so that the legislature would have the capacity in World Cup, but also in any other large scale events, a Super Bowl or whatever, that there's a process in which the governor can extend a variety of controls for 15 days. And then the legislative leadership can do that 150 days at a time. And that came up, I think, after COVID and the reaction to giving too much authority to the administration. I would also note there was an update to the legislature this morning about World Cup and where they are, and that's been provided to staff if that's something you're interested in. A couple of other things I would just briefly note: motor vehicle fees, finally, after trying to make up for the revenue that you are spending for doing the state's work and motor vehicle registration, there was a bill that has passed the Senate that allows for up to $15 vehicle registration fee and renewals that will be available for counties. It is going to be in the tax conference committee, and so I think this will get negotiated out. I have a good sense that this likely will happen. Where else are we going? There are a couple of other bills. One I would note, Senate Bill 418, that has to do with allowing kind of fast tracking residential development for some projects for homes below 2,000 square feet. It's going to conference committee. It passed the Senate, and they'll have some discussion about how that would work. It would allow, they initially wanted to do 3,000 feet, and you had to get an answer from the local government within 15 days. It's been bumped up to 30. I think one other thing I would mention, set of things that would kind of related to issues that I know we've had interest in other times. There are some changes that have some impact on both parole and community supervision of folks, and have an impact on some community-based programs, both on the adult and juvenile side. There's a drug and alcohol treatment program that is utilized, and there's a criminal bill that population of people who are on supervision and have a new felony, and it would send them all back to prison immediately without directly, and that obviously is going to drive up prison costs, but it's also going to stop folks who would otherwise be eligible go to drug treatment, and that's widely used around the state. State pays about $18 million a year to fund that. So, but they're attempting to get that fixed. I think that's going to maybe happen tomorrow in Senate Judiciary. There is funding available for new youth stabilization centers that are starting to pop up in other parts of the state. And one of the components of that is having a funding stream coming out of Evidence-Based Practice Fund. It's a pool of resources that have existed for a while. It's leaning towards serving child welfare populations, and for local governments, cities and counties, there's some discussion about there's going to be juvenile affected youth that need to be able to have access to that and have funding, as well as your community based services are also funded out of that pot of money. So that's going to come into a clash at some point. That might be all I would mention. There's a couple of other issues on here, but I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Stuart. Commissioners, questions?
Stuart, on that bill to move elections to odd numbered years, do you think that's going to pass?
I think the potential for it to pass is low, and I'm not sure what the governor, at this point, I'm not sure what she would do to address that. It has a lot of votes, but that was passed early in the session, and I think there's been a lot of reaction from lots of local government folks about some of the challenges. And also, 5 or 6 years ago, when they started moving by choice of counties wanted to do into the even years, that was part of a movement that wanted to move everybody and make them partisan, and that was how that began. And so they moved a little bit, and I think this is the folks that want this and that are pushing this, if they could get this to move everybody into the even numbered years, then the next thing that they'll come back with is, well, everybody's on the same ballot. They're all partisan anyway. Let's make all local races partisan as well. That's the long-term goal that was stated 10 years ago, and that's why we're doing this legislation now. So.
I just wondered, because that Eudora school or library board bill, they amended that to make it an odd numbered year election in the House.
Yeah. On the same cycle of other issues. Yeah.
Thanks.
7-0, Kratom.
It was introduced, and for some reason, nobody wants to have a hearing on it and move it forward. There's lots of interest in it. I mean, you had big raids going on right before the legislative session began, and there's been very limited interest in pursuing that. And I think some of it is interest in avoiding controversial issues in an election year. And so, I think something like that on a floor of a House or a Senate, you probably have a discussion about cannabis. And so it's like, we're not going to go down that path, I think, at this point.
Okay, so maybe next.
Yeah, I think there's a high level of awareness that it needs to be dealt with. It's kind of unfortunate that we're not doing it right now anyway. So.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'm assuming there's no movement on a conservation fund again this year.
No, I'm not even sure there was any.
I don't think it went anywhere. I don't think so.
Stuart, I double checked. These reports seem to be getting longer and longer. Does it feel that way to you too? No, it's okay. It's not your fault. I appreciate your thoroughness. I just did a quick search to make sure I didn't miss it. I have it noted as CCR 2125, but I think it's a House bill that's been recently. I don't know if it started out as a House bill. It's been a little bit of a confusing thing to track, but basically there's some conversation amongst big 5 counties about it. And it's another property tax bill. And it seems kind of like it has some similar elements to, of course, I can't keep any of the bill numbers straight, but I think that I think some action happened on it after you already produced this report for us. And I was wondering if you knew anything.
So that's been shared among the big 5 counties, right? That's 2745 that I described up here.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you for, I thought that they were basically the same, but all the other correspondence I have is referencing it as this other number. And
Yeah.
so that was confusing me. So it is the same thing, not companion.
Right. And that description of the impacts on local government are directly related to that bill as it stands now.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Didn't know if we were looking at 2 different things, sort of attacking in different directions. Commissioners, other questions?
Follow up on that. House Bill 2745, that would apply to all local governments, every cemetery district, every township, et cetera.
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else, commissioners? Okay, we'll go ahead and open this up for public comment. Thank you, Stuart. Anybody here wish to provide public comment on this legislative update? All right, seeing no one stand up. Any virtual hands, Sarah? Okay, we'll close public comment on item 3.3 and bring it back for any further discussion or comments. Just a reminder, this is for informational purposes only. There's no action to be taken, but certainly if commissioners have other thoughts they wish to share, now's the time.
That it's been a really wild ride, and I'm really glad to have Stuart kind of watching these moving parts on our behalf. It sounds like a couple of days, the situation will change again, and we will kind of watch for updates after that. So.
Okay. Thank you, Stuart. We appreciate your work. And pass that along to Mallory too for us, please. And we'll see you again here soon, I'm sure. With that, our regular agenda item is concluded for the evening, and we will move on to discuss appointments if we have any commissioners. I don't have any immediately ready ones noted, but you all might have some that are queued up and ready to go. And I see two commissioners pulling their microphones, so whoever wants to take it.
Well, this one's been waited on for a while, so I will move it forward. And this is for the 7th Judicial District Nominating Committee. Those are by district. So the one from my district, I would like to renominate Alina Altman, who's been serving in that role. Was very impressed with her. I think she's going to continue to bring a lot of great perspective there. So I would like to reappoint her.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Willie. I'll be glad to second that. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great. Passes unanimously. Thank you for that. Commissioner Anderson, you've got one ready?
I do, yes. So we have Chaconi Baker that has expressed interest in the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council, and so I'd like to recommend her appointment for the impacted individual appointment.
Great. Thank you for that reminder. I forgot to make myself a note about that. Appreciate you bringing that forward and happy to second that and excited that it's getting filled. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great. Passes unanimously. Any others?
I have one more.
Great.
All right. And we also have Susan King. She's with the Kansas Health Foundation. She leads the think tank, and she has expressed interest in the Lawrence Douglas County Public Health Board. She would be a wealth of experience for that board, and so I'd like to bring her forward as well for that appointment.
I had another name in the works that is going to fall through, and I'm very happy to second Susan King.
Thank you.
Great. Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Another unanimous appointment. Any others, commissioners, for this evening?
Food Policy Council.
Yeah, I have sent you all the information related to the Food Policy Council appointment last several weeks, so.
And I don't know that I can pull it up fast enough to make a motion on that at the moment, but.
If you're ready, I could try to find it, or if you want to try to do it next week, we can. Can make a note to, oh, go ahead.
It's Mariah Carlson, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Commissioner Kelly, were you?
I'm happy to nominate Mariah Carlson for the Food Policy Council.
Second, thank you.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. I was under the impression, for some reason, I thought we did that a couple weeks back. So appreciate the reminder because I had it checked off on my list for some reason. Okay. Well, commissioners, I'm very impressed with our recent season of appointments. We've been really moving through it in recent weeks and the list is getting shorter. It'll grow again.
And I've got a
It's
couple
getting
more
shorter.
coming, so,
Yeah.
yep.
So great. Thank you for all your work on that. Okay. With that, we will move on to Commissioner and Administrator Miscellaneous, and we'll go ahead and start with Sarah's memo.
Thanks, commissioners. You've got an updated memo in your packet. Lots of dates coming for as much as tomorrow night with an emergency management seminar through some dates in June. In addition, as Commissioner Reed mentioned, the big five counties have asked us to reach out to state legislators related to CCR 2125 and related, which would impose a property tax cap on local governments. You've got some additional updated reports in your packet. Next week, commissioners, we do not have a work session, but we will have a meeting. That, I believe that's all I have. I will have updated information related to the Chamber DC fly-in April in your packet for next week. And so we can make some determinations on if people are available to go to that trip.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. And I'll go ahead and jump in and expand on the Big Five County Caucus conversation. And just a reminder that in that thread, it's been being referenced as CCR, House Bill CCR 2125, also known as, what is it, 2475. The big one that we were talking about. And so I just kind of wanted to give an update to commissioners that, you know, right now we're all sort of waiting to see if lobbyists find it advantageous for us to sort of put together a formal letter as a Big Five County Caucus again. And I think it's a little bit of wait and see how the conversation goes in some continued discussions this week in Topeka. But we've certainly been encouraged to do outreach to individual legislators. So, you know, I think that if we can all take a look at, you know, where our districts overlap with other legislators, especially our House representatives, and consider doing some outreach on that. I can pass along some basic draft talking points that had been provided that Sarah can provide after this if it's helpful. But to summarize, you know, I think it's all things commissioners are well aware of and maybe share my nervousness and concern about. Certainly, number one being that it'll create unnecessary bureaucracy and confusion. It's pretty convoluted, understanding what all the process and the different required public hearings and notices, timeframes, that's all pretty complicated, both for administration and for the public. It also creates uncertainty about who has a standing to sign petitions because of the language being about registered voters in that taxing district, which doesn't account for property owners who may not be registered voters, also doesn't account for registered voters who may not be property owners and direct taxpayers. So there's definitely some confusion around that. And then it certainly could unintentionally raise the costs for taxpayers by not clearly exempting bonds in that legislation was something that was zeroed in on. And so there's definitely discussion about urging representatives to vote no on that because of the significant burden and changes that have gone into kind of all the revisions of that bill. So if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to me directly or Sarah, and I'll pass along these talking points. And if and when the chairs of the Big Five counties decide to formalize a letter together, we'll make sure that that's a part of an upcoming agenda packet for all commissioners to see.
Just a reminder that there are, my count is about 47 different taxing authorities within Douglas County. All of those have boards. Most of those are volunteer boards. They're doing the best they can for the taxpayers that, you know, asked them to do those tasks. So those are drainage districts and cemetery districts and townships doing roads and such. All of those will be impacted. So those are folks that we could also reach out to kind of elevate their voices, because I think it's our smaller taxing jurisdictions that they keep tight budgets already. They need what they have. And I think that they will be disproportionately harmed by the bill. And it's House Bill 2745 or CCR 2125.
Thank you, Commissioner Milley. Very good point. Any other miscellaneous items that commissioners wish to bring up or share for the good of the order?
I know we were wanting to kind of make a new habit about sharing back after we had met with the various boards that we sit on as commissioners. So we had our quarterly KU Innovation Park meeting. So I didn't prepare a lot of report to come back to that. The next building has been in the design phase, and we broke ground on it for some time back, but there's been some holdups with that. That's moving forward with the design is finalized. And so that's a big step for For KU Innovation Park, many of those leases are signed and companies are ready and eager to be a part of that. Also that this body had asked at budget time to have KU Innovation Park look at what's that longer term pilot program look like for a payment in lieu of taxes. And that has made some progress and we should see something more substantial here shortly.
Great, thank you. And with that reminder, I'll mention that I got to attend my first Kansas Workforce One meeting of the year as the new county appointee on that. And so our next one will be in June, and that will be the annual meeting. And there's also going to be a retreat coming up soon, which I'm looking forward to because it's a pretty big group, very, very large, significant geographic areas. So, and I can't even remember how many people are on the overall chief elected officials board, but it's pretty significant. So I'm looking forward to some opportunity to make some in-person connections with other counties and learn more about kind of what I remember from my past service on a previous iteration of this board, and it seems clear to me now is there's dozens of ways to sort of do workforce development and draw down some of those Department of Labor dollars and other dollars that Kansas Workforce One is working with that manifest differently in different communities. So I'm starting to get a little bit of a grasp on that, and I'm also hopeful. New bylaws were passed, and Commissioner Kelly was on that board during a significant season of change and growth and transition. It seems like much of that is sort of completed now in a formal way. And so now I think there's some real momentum to hit the ground running, and hopefully I'll have some interesting workforce updates for you all throughout the year. Anything else for the good of the order this evening, commissioners? Okay, with that, we are adjourned. Have a good night, everybody.